Hi AP students, thanks for watching my video today. I kind of have to teach you how to write an introduction paragraph since I didn't see you a second time in class this week, and so we kind of have to move it to remote. So what I did is I did a model for you on a text you would normally read in class, and then I want you to try to replicate that for when you do it on your own. So we're going to go through that process today. So let's just get started. You'll click into week 3 assignments. It will be published for you. I just haven't done it quite yet. Red or silver, it's the same. And here's your assignment. You're going to have to make sure that once you complete this, that you'll click submit. So when you click into this, it'll come up with a thing that says my document. Mine's different because I'm a teacher. It'll say my document right there. Just click into that, and then once you're done typing in it, then you click submit. Hopefully you've done this before. Okay, so if I were to click into my document, here's what you'll pull up. First of all, I have an example for you. All the comments are going to populate here in a second. And I want you to use these to then guide you for the one that I want you to do. Click into this one. Okay, here it is. All right, so here are the directions. You're going to read and annotate the passage and think about what the author is doing and labeling the rhetorical strategies through comments, making comments on the side, and use that pink sheet that has a list of rhetorical strategies on it. We'll talk about, I want you to think about patterns of development, some description, some narrative, some definition, whenever it shows up. You're going to identify soapstone at the end, and then you're going to write the introduction paragraph as if you were writing a full essay. So the prompt would be something like this. Write an essay in which you determine the author's purpose and explain the strategies the author uses to achieve it. So in my introduction paragraph, I have to kind of mention the strategies, mention the purpose, and then my body paragraphs will do the rest. Oh goodness, oh goodness. Okay, so this first one is just an example, so you don't have to do anything to it, okay? And it's pretty short, just 3 paragraphs. This is the book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, and this is an excerpt from one of the chapters. Annie Dillard is the author. I'll read this with you and kind of show you how I annotated it. A couple of summers ago, sorry you guys, I should probably tell you that Annie Dillard, super popular, still alive. She's a naturalist, so she really values nature, and that's a lot of what her writing is, and she makes these connections between life and nature a lot. So it's just a little background on her that you would maybe want to know. Even if you didn't know that, you might be able to gather that information about her as a speaker after you read this. Okay, here we go. A couple of summers ago, I was walking along the edge of the island to see what I could see in the water, and mainly to scare frogs. Frogs have an elegant way of taking off from invisible positions on the bank just ahead of your feet, in dire panic, emitting a froggy yike and splashing into the water. Incredibly, this amused me, and incredibly, it amuses me still. So there's some things she's doing in the first part here, but the first thing I notice personally is that she's establishing herself as someone who likes aquatic life, both in her past and currently. As I walked along the grassy edge of the island, I got better and better at seeing frogs both in and out of the water. I learned to recognize, slowing down, the difference in texture of the light reflected from the mud, bank, water, grass, or frog. So what she's doing here, and that's necessarily a strategy, but what she's doing here is describing the fun she's having, identifying the frogs as they jump around. Okay, so again, it's not anything you're going to find on your list of rhetorical strategies, but it's just as effective to talk about what is the author doing. So if you can't find a strategy on your list to go with what you're reading, then just think about what is the author doing and how might that have an effect on the purpose. Frogs were flying all around me. At the end of the island, I noticed a small green frog. He was exactly half in and half out of the water, looking like a schematic diagram of an amphibian, and he didn't jump. Okay, so for this one I said what she's doing is establishing a contrast between this one particular frog and the others. Another thing she's doing here that I haven't added, but I'm going to, is there's a simile, and that's all something that we all know, looking like a schematic diagram. It's always good to just recognize those. Okay, so if you see one of those easy ones, go ahead and label it. He didn't jump, second paragraph. Okay, so now she's repeating this phrase, so that means it's important. So she's repeating the previous clause, he didn't jump, he didn't jump. That's definitely going to have an emphasis. That means it's important when things are repeated. So I'm just going to add emphasis on this idea, okay? I crept closer. For this, I would just say it's a short phrase, which kind of builds suspense and emphasis, again, on the event. At last I knelt down on the island's winter-killed grass, lost, dumbstruck, staring at the frog in the creek just 4 feet away. He was a very small frog with wide, dull eyes. Here's some pattern stuff, so describing the frog and establishing this difference or contrast. That's what she's doing. Notice that all of my verbs end in ing for this one. And just as I looked at him, he slowly crumpled and began to sag. Okay, the word crumpled, really vivid word choice. And in this entire line, this stream of sentences, you're going to see a lot of really strong verbs. Began to sag. The spirit vanished from his eyes as if snuffed. Snuffed means what you do when you put out a candle. His skin emptied and drooped. Look at all these great verbs. He's dying. This frog is dying. His skin emptied and drooped. His spirit vanished. He crumpled. He sagged. Great imagery. His very skull seemed to collapse and settle like a kicked tent. Great imagery. Nice simile there. He was shrinking before my eyes like a deflating football. So again, really, really great imagery and similes. I watched the taut, glistening skin on his shoulders ruck and rumple and fall. Soon part of his skin, formless as a pricked balloon, great imagery, great simile, lay in floating folds like bright scum on the top of water. It was a monstrous and terrifying thing. I gaped, bewildered, appalled. I'm going to add something here. When she says this, I kind of get her idea of her tone, what her attitude is towards the subject of the frog dying. She's shocked. An oval shadow hung in the water behind the drained frog. Great imagery. Then the shadow glided away. The frog skin bag started to sink. Ew, gross, disgusting. I can't imagine what's happening. Luckily, she explains it to us in the third paragraph. Another short, emphatic sentence at the end of the sentence can really have an impact. I had read about the giant water bug, but never seen one. Giant water bug is really the name of the creature, which is an enormous, heavy-bodied brown bug. Okay, so some good description. Very scientific, now matter of fact in her tone shift. It eats insects, tadpoles, fish, and frogs. Its grasping forelegs are mighty and hooked inward. It seizes a victim with these legs, hugs it tight, and paralyzes it with enzymes injected during a vicious bite. That one bite is the only bite it ever takes. Through the punctures shoot the poisons that dissolve the victim's muscles and bones and organs, all but the skin. Okay, so she's got some process analysis. Okay, it makes it less grotesque, more scientific, but a nice detail. Oops, sorry, you guys. A nice detail to offset with the hyphens, all but the skin. Yeah, it's set off by the dashes, not hyphens, the dashes. And through it, the giant water bug sucks out the victim's body, reduced to a juice. It's disgusting. It's great imagery. And you can tell how much she cares about this and how fascinated she is by this process because of the word choice. This event is quite common in warm, fresh water. The frog I saw was being sucked by a giant water bug. I had been kneeling on the island grass when the unrecognizable flap of frog skin settled on the creek bottom, swaying. I like that detail too, swaying. Provides some good imagery. I stood up and brushed the knees of my pants. I couldn't catch my breath. And again, I just ended it with that's a good one for tone. Okay, she realizes what she just witnessed, so this is really good for tone of shock and kind of awe. All right, if I were to fill out the soapstone for this one, I would say that there's really a frog dying, and the frog is dying. He's being reduced to a juice by the giant water bug. I would say that her audience is probably those who enjoy nature, but also those who might not realize what happens in nature. You know, it's like not just always about the amusement of nature, and as humans, we don't really maybe appreciate or we often overlook the life cycle and some of the violence that happens within nature. I would say that her purpose is to showcase the violence, but also beauty of nature, to demonstrate appreciation and respect for the life cycle. She's a naturalist, like I told you, obviously a famous writer. She's a woman. She's in awe. She's in shock of this. She also maintains a kind of serious tone. She treats the subject very seriously. As far as occasion, maybe she felt that the reason she needed to talk about this because it was important to her, and there's like maybe a need for to educate others, and that's why she decided to write it, which is the motivation. Okay, so I am running out of time here, so I'm going to go really, really fast. When you write an introduction paragraph for that prompt, which is what strategies does the author use to achieve purpose? Your introduction is short, okay? It's just a few sentences. Start with something clever if it comes to you quickly, but if it doesn't come to you quickly, then you need to skip that, okay? That can be a sentence. Then you need to provide the context. What's the title? Who's the author? Summarize the text quickly, okay? That would be taking care of your subject in another sentence. Provide as much information about the soapstone, the audience, and the speaker as possible without it being really awkward, okay? You want your introduction to flow professionally in a sophisticated tone. Mention the idea of the key rhetorical strategies. I could list them, or I could just say the key rhetorical strategies. And of course, the purpose is your thesis statement, okay? Here is my example for you, which I want you to use when you do your own. I used to chase and try to catch frogs in my grandmother's backwoods in Indiana as a kid. Never did I consider what really goes on in nature that I always overlooked. Okay, there's my clever sentence. Here's my context. In the excerpt from Heaven and Earth in Jest, Annie Dillard recounts the time she witnessed a frog be sucked to death by a giant water bug as she walked along a grassy bank full of frogs. There's my quick summary. As a naturalist and prolific writer herself, Dillard, I'm going to add something, writes to an appreciative audience and captures how violent nature can be and how it can bring a person literally to their knees in astonishment. Using a variety of rhetorical strategies, Dillard writes to recognize the beauty and violence that exists in nature, right? Because it's beautiful, but it's also, there's like this whole other side that we may not appreciate or know about or even understand. And so she writes about this event to be able to capture that, okay? All right, so I've got a summary, I've mentioned the key rhetorical strategies, I've got a good purpose, and I put in those other soapstone pieces where I can. All right, so now it's your turn. You're gonna do the same thing. This is by Diane Ackerman. This is about the annual bat migration in Austin, Texas. And so I want you to do the exact same things, okay? You're gonna then fill out the soapstone and write an introduction paragraph using my model and the little notes that I put up here for you, okay? Make sure you hit submit on Schoology. And just for fun, I actually have a video on YouTube of a snake being eaten by a water bug, if you want to see actually that process. And it's these two kind of teenagers who witness it, and they're so nerdy and awesome because they just get like so into it when they watch this water bug go to town on this snake, which is kind of wild. And then the annual bat migration is a real thing. It's beautiful, even though it's a little bit kind of gross because bats are nasty, but if you actually want to see this like cloud of bats moving through underneath this one bridge in Austin, Texas, that is described in your passage, then click on that for a quick video. And I always like a good visual, and if we were in class, I would have showed you that video anyway. All right, so about the same length. Email me with questions. Best of luck. We're going to get really good and get started at writing introductions, and we'll move on to body paragraphs for rhetorical analysis, and we'll just keep plugging away. Talk to you soon. Thanks again.